Shawn Davidson is president of the Saskatchewan School Boards Association, and he's in our Regina studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
How do you interpret everything you've heard? You get this letter saying no layoffs, but cut salaries 3.5, and then we just heard what the finance minister had to say. How are you interpreting all of this?
It's been very difficult to interpret. There actually was an a directive sent out from the government to school board chairs back in December, telling us that any further negotiations, we should be trying to negotiate zeros into those contracts. And then here we are a few months later, we get a second letter that says that we should try to negotiate a minus 3.5 and try to achieve this through attrition and through negotiation and through things like that. The school boards are absolutely committed to respecting the collective bargaining process and honoring the collective bargaining agreements which are in place.
How many, roughly, ballpark, collective agreements are we talking about here?
Well, there's 28 school divisions in the province, and some have multiple employee groups that are represented. Like they may have some employees represented by CUPE, some represented by SEIU. Some divisions would just have a CUPE agreement. Every division will also have a local agreement negotiated with their teachers, which covers things like leaves and prep time and substitute use pay and things like that. So there is somewhere in the order of 70 in that area
that have been set at the table.
That have been collectively bargained, yes.
So where does this leave you, what you just heard from Kevin Doherty?
Well, it's we haven't gotten a lot of really clear direction from the Ministry of Education as boards as to what is expected in this process. There's certainly the province is clearly looking for financial savings, and when you're looking at a sector where about 80% of our expenditures are salaries, then when we're looking for financial savings, we have to look at savings in the salary area because it's such a big part of our overall expenditure.
Is the teachers the big one coming up? That's August, isn't it?
The teachers will be the biggest employee group, yes, and certainly the largest financial part of any school division's operations is our teachers. They're the ones that deliver the programs to our kids. They have to be. Yes, their provincial agreement is up in August.
Yeah, and so how should teachers be feeling right now about job security and the security of their salaries, do you think?
Well, that'll all be determined at the bargaining table, and I'm not going to speculate as to where that will go as the government trustee bargaining committee works their way through the process with the Saskatchewan Teachers Federation. Those talks are due to begin sometime in May, 100 days prior to the expiry of the agreement, and where that goes is where it'll go.
Are you looking at, do you think 3.5 across the board with all these groups, or do you have to come up with 3.5 overall?
The target, as we understand as boards, is that they'll be looking at a 3.5% reduction overall. And how that's achieved is probably in multiple ways. Some will be through some staff reduction. Some will be through some, they'd like to see as much attrition as possible being used to manage some of this. Some other things like some of the non-salary items within agreements, I think, will be discussed that have monetary implications. The attendance management is one thing that I know some school boards are doing a lot of good work on to try to keep things reasonable in that area as well. So there's lots of possibilities. We haven't gotten any real totally clear direction as to what it all means.
Although they have expressed their willingness to help you. How do you feel about that?
Well, we certainly would like to work with them in defining what this all means.
But what about in deciding how to apply it?
Well, there's certainly been a lot of things floated out by the minister and the government in the last weeks, not the least of which is Bill 63, that would undermine the authority of boards to make decisions, of duly elected, locally elected boards. And those things are of grave concern to school boards. When they went through the whole consultation process on board governance, they heard loud and clear from the people of Saskatchewan, 4,000 of them, that people liked local representation in education, nonpartisan, independent advocates for the kids, and this appears to be getting a little more and more undermined every day, and that's of the greatest concern of all to
your
to our member
autonomy and
boards.
decision making.
Absolutely,
right?
yes.
So how are you making your views known?
Well, we're spending lots of time visiting with folks like yourself. We've had a press conference last Friday that made some statements about Bill 63. The minister is well aware that we are very concerned about the loss of our decision-making authority.
But you've got a deadline, right? That letter came with a deadline, did it not?
The letter came with a deadline which was really unmanageable. We received the letter on Monday and the deadline was Friday last week.
So you haven't responded?
Well, I can't speak for all the member boards on that. There's some that may have responded to that letter already in some fashion. I know there's others that have not because they haven't had a chance to get a plan in place. To respond to the minister.
Right now, you just sound perplexed by the whole thing.
It's been really challenging. This is really challenging times for education. Some of these initiatives that are coming down are challenging to manage. The budget that we're dealing with for this year is very challenging to manage for boards, my own based out of Moose Jaw included. All of the boards around the province are seeing some significant cutbacks, so we're dealing with things on a lot of different levels right now, and it's difficult.
Yeah. Thanks so much for coming in. You're on crutches, I should say, so we especially appreciate you making the effort this morning, Shawn.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
You haven't been in fisticuffs with the finance minister or anything, hey, with your crutches there?
No, I don't intend to do that.
Shawn Davidson, president of the Saskatchewan School Boards Association.